Hi and welcome everyone to another episode of Gaming with Jason. Today I'm going to talk about what I consider to be the 5 best countries to start with in Conflict of Nations World War III. So let's go ahead and go with I'm not going to do them in any order because they all have their benefits. You can figure out which one you like. I will tell you how to use each one of them, and if you decide that this is one you want to play, at least now you know how to use it. Okay, so my first one, and one of my favorites, and I kind of stumbled across this, is Saudi. Now I looked at B2's video where he was talking about how India was the best nation, and I strongly disagree with him, and I will show you the what I also consider, and I'm going to do a separate video of this, the 5 worst countries to be, in my opinion, to start the game with. B2 made a comment about Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iraq, and I'm gonna go ahead and settle this because here's the thing: Iraq, I never really see do anything, and if he does, he joins a coalition. For some reason, it's I've never seen a lot of experienced players take Iraq. Although Iraq is a good country to be, it's a mid-range country. But as you see, this guy is new. He still doesn't know how to play the game. So generally, Iraq is a country I've rarely ever worried about. Iran and Ethiopia are the only 2 countries I have to worry about, and that is because the only way these 2 countries can get to me, actually, the only way that Ethiopia can get to me is through Jizan. And usually, what you should do if you are Saudi is just work out an agreement and say, hey, look, I will stay out of Africa and I will protect this little junction here. And you stay out of the Middle East, and I'm going to go towards Iran. Okay, and this is how you neutralize Ethiopia. And Ethiopia could be your best friend, but he also could be your worst enemy. And Ethiopia, if you can neutralize him, you will have a successful game with Saudi Arabia. Okay, and this is how you neutralize him: is you guys do this junction, you give him Africa, you take Middle East, you guys don't step on each other, and you have mutual protection because he needs his port protected and you need your port protected, because both of you only have 2 port cities. So if you put a couple of destroyers, or if you put some stuff there and say, hey, look, I've got this here, if you're and you coordinate, that way you both can make sure that nobody gets through this little canal, and now you have complete control. And then if you really want to start on like a mini navy, you would want to put another one up right around like here at the mouth of the Suez Canal, because then now that protects everything that you got going on. And if Egypt tries to jump across and go through Israel and come in here, because that's the only way that Israel can get to you, or excuse me, that's the only way that Egypt can get to you, and the only way that Sudan can get to you is through a port city if they want to attack you, unless they go through Israel. And Israel is the biggest pain to conquer in the Middle East, and when you want to talk about cities that go rogue and it takes forever for them to really settle down, I mean, honestly, this is the worst part of the world to be in, and it's always in this unrest that you see here, and it takes forever to calm it down. So usually what I like to do is I like to go after Oman and Yemen and Jordan, and which is right here, and then you also have Kuwait City. And you could tell Israel, because Israel's usually a newer person. Very few people actually take Israel. But anyways, here, Israel, he's not that experienced, and he's with a small nation. So if he doesn't really know what he's doing, he's not going to do well. Now, as you see, he's going after Syria, which is natural, because he's not going to want to go after a country that's like 10 times his size. He's going to want to go after a country like this, so now that he can stand up to a country like Saudi Arabia. But if you're Saudi Arabia, you take Iraq first, and then you come in and you either take Syria, who takes over Israel, or Israel, who takes over Syria. You end up taking those guys over, and now you're on the border with Turkey and Iran. Now, either Turkey needs to be your ally member, or you need to create another thing and say, hey, look, I tell you what, I will leave you Russia and Europe, because honestly, all of your good resources are in here, and I will talk about Turkey here in a second. But anyways, you tell him, hey, look, you can have Europe. I want to go towards Iran, and let's just do a natural defense pact, or a no attack thing, so that I can go in my direction. Towards later in the game, if you have to really like turn tide on them, I would turn on Turkey before I would turn on Ethiopia, because Ethiopia always has nukes, and Ethiopia has always got strong units. But then you're right. So you're right. You take these NPCs, and then after you're done taking the NPCs, you've already got your next round of troops, and you're going through. And by now, you should have you should have gunships. And if you're using your gunships, you just send them in here, and that starts softening up the target so that your minimal units can take over Iraq. And so right then and there, within a couple of days, you're on Iran's doorstep. And then that means you need to start opening up dialogue with Iran. But if you want to be, if your next step is going to be to take Iran, and then by day 14, you should be over here on India's doorstep. And India will try and come in through Muscat or Dammam. It's very rare that they ever try and come through here. So you probably, if you have ships here and here, and you want to put up another corvette, I would put up one right here just to protect this city. And then you pretty much got a good defense, because your neighbors are usually pretty good. So now the second country that I think would be that I think is the best to start with is Turkey, and here's why. With Turkey, yes, you have all of these ports, plus it is also American Doctrine again, and we'll go in here and I'll just show you how it's the Western Doctrine. You've got air power, you've got navy, and you've got the ability. You are a strong country. It is resource rich, as you see. You have an extra component there. Let's see. You have 2 component cities right here. Okay, and so as you notice, even here in Saudi, you have you have 2 component cities, Jizan and Tabuk. All right, and that's the other thing. And here's the way that you would want to work it: is if you happen to get into a coalition with Saudi, you want to keep or just make friends with Saudi. Maybe even start off with Saudi and say, hey, look, you go after Iran, I'm going after Europe. Okay? And there's a reason for this. And in that way, he will focus on Iran. You talk with Iran and you say, hey, look, I will leave you Persia and Russia if you you tell him you'll leave him Persia and Asia if he just and you'll go to Europe. Okay, so there's a good reason why you want to start here. So you got Europe, right? Or you've got Turkey, and so you have Istanbul, which is your foothold in here. So you're going to want an airbase over there so that you can transport your troops, because going through you're going to have to disembark, re-embark, load. It takes a while. This is going to be one of the first places you're going to want an airbase. And you're definitely going to want to go after Serbia first, and then Greece. Greece is always a stepchild, but here you're gonna want to start off with, at least at the very beginning, you're gonna want to start off with corvettes, because the corvettes are going to give you an edge against Greece, because most people who play Greece play it as a naval country, which is rightfully so. But anyways, we've got Serbia here. You go in through Europe, and you start with Serbia, and you start with Greece, and then you work your way up to Romania. Also, another thing is if you get an opportunity, you want to annex Crimea as quickly as possible. The reason why Crimea is so important is that it gives, now if Ukraine takes it, it now gives a strike zone for them to come right across, and now they have 3 port cities that can come at you, versus Russia, who has 1. But if you have this here, you at least have an advantage to where he's going to go like, okay, there's a possibility. This is also the reason why you want to build ships, because this region right here and this region right here are going to be highly contested throughout the game. Okay, so my next favorite country to be, number 3, is always Philippines. If I ever need a confidence booster, I'm going to go over here to the Philippines. Yes, the Philippines is the American doctrine. Again, you are out on an island. You're all by yourself. Your first attack is always going to be here and in Brunei, and then that way you are going to either. I found it best because is Indonesia is eastern and he's gonna bog you down. It is easier for Philippines to go after Vietnam. This is the first thing you want to do is you want to build corvettes. You want to have 2 or 3 corvettes right off the bat. So that should be the first thing you should build day one, because you can build them on day one, maybe on your first day of play. Your maybe your second or third day in the game, but you should already have those corvettes, because that's what's going to give you a landing party to come over here. And so what you'll do is, while you're building those corvettes, you'll build up your recon units and your infantry, and you'll make a landing here, and there is a lot of resources here, and then this gives you direct access to Indonesia. Okay. After that, usually China tries to come in and do something, and if Japan hasn't conquered China, then Philippines generally conquers China, because China's China. China is usually a noob who doesn't know what he's doing, so it's easy to outmaneuver him. So even though he's much bigger, he's not really that big of a deal. Okay. The thing is, this is where you're going to go if you want to do Navy. You're going to do Saudi, you're going to do Turkey if you want to do you're going to do Saudi if you want to do land. You're going to do Turkey if you want to do a hybrid. But you're going to do this if you want to mainly focus on Navy. So you're going to focus on naval patrol. You're going to focus on AWACS. You're going to focus on your ships. You're going to focus on infantry. And you're going to focus on Bradley. And probably you should have naval strikers and naval air superiority fighters. You should go strictly Navy and do a full-on Navy doctrine. Which I will talk about in another video. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and you'll get all these awesome videos that I do. And so number 4 over here, Japan is number 4, and Japan is a new addition to the Western Doctrine, and the one that I like most. A lot of it has to do with the resource production. If you notice, all of the Western Doctrine countries, the best Western Doctrine countries, all have 2 components. So I got one there, and there should be the other, and there's one there. Okay, so I've got 2 component cities. I mean, having those component cities really turns the tide as far as production. But this is also what you need if you're going to be aggressive, is you need to be able to have those extra resources. So if you want to be aggressive, this is part of the reason why the Western Doctrine is good. If you want to be defensive, then you want to do Eastern or European. If you want to be able to do a good counter strike, you're probably going to want to do European, just for the speed variant, because not even the Eastern Doctrine gets the speed variant. Okay, but if you look here, you get these. Your first one is always going to be Korea and the outlying islands. China will act up and probably go after Vietnam. So you need to make nice with China if China is a rank 30 or above. If not, you should be planning to take the Koreas and then go after Japan, or excuse me, go after China. But here's the thing. If you're going to beat Japan, you should really be looking at taking over all of the islands, the Korean Peninsula, and maybe even the back end of Russia. Okay? China will open itself, and when he makes himself vulnerable, you pounce. You've got to be patient with China, because if somebody gets behind the helm that knows what they're doing, you could very easily lose, just because of number of cities. They have a couple more than you, which means they can actually produce more land and air units if they have the resources. But then again, that requires a competent player. But this is how I would go after it if I were Japan, and when I play Japan. Now Japan, I usually have some of my best games with. Okay, guys, number 5 on my list is the United States. If I had to be a Western country and I wanted to be strong, I would choose the United States. Not only for number of cities, but for resources as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cities. Okay, oh, and then they got another supply over here. So out of 9 cities, they get a lot of resources, and they get extra components. So, but the only downfall with the United States, the only reason why I am not a super fan of it, but I will play them, is because it takes forever to get over. You have to take out, if you're going to play the United States, you should take out Mexico first, make nice with Canada, because Canada can protect Alaska, and you can use Canada later on in the game if he can remain active. Because the second he goes inactive, you just pounce on him, or you get down here to the tip of South America, because you're going to end up joining an American coalition. You get down here to the tip of South America, then you just go up here, and now you've got Central and North America. Plus, you also have Cuba here, but Cuba is really good to have as a naval power if you can get an experienced player. I would say it's 50-50 on that. Cuba is somebody that, oh God, Cuba is somebody that you can that you can count on being a wild card from time to time, but he will generally work with the United States because the United States is considered the big boy with the most city, the most resources, and the American doctrine. But the thing is most people who play over here as the United States, they're not as active as they probably should be, and that's why places like Mexico and usually it's only Mexico you end up fighting with. I've never had Canada invade. It's been rare that Canada invades, but it's usually Mexico and possibly Cuba are the only real issues you're going to have. And Cuba is just going to take advantage of you if he thinks he's better than you. But Cuba is generally going to go after here. See, this is where everybody can go after and get their resources, but then you're going to have this area here engulfed. And if you're smart and you stay out of everything, you build your resources, you come in here, you backdoor, you go right down here. Okay, but if you're going to build the United States, though, you should build Alaska and Hawaii as your predominant naval bases, and you need to have a triangle of air bases here for your naval patrol and your AWACS, and you should definitely, especially considering the advantage of having Hawaii, is to kind of keep that dome off to keep that separation between you and the rest of the world. So you want to be able to keep people from dropping nukes on you, especially from Asia. You have everything in between here that you want to use. So you're probably going to put something like right here in this junction, this junction, this junction, and this junction here. Well, actually, probably put one there and there. You're going to have to figure out how you want to do it, but you need to protect Alaska and you need to protect your mainland from any nuke or naval attack. So this is what the United States is going to be doing. See, when you're over here in the Americas and you play the Americas, you've got to be preparing for the rest of the world to come after you, because you're usually the last ditch effort, and either you could put up a really good fight, turn the tide, and win the game. It's happened, and it happens, I would say, 30% of the time. So there are some good odds there. But when it comes to the United States, you really have to be prepared for Asia and for Europe. Europe isn't really going to come over here unless it's the UK, but he's going to end up dealing with Canada. South America usually goes after Africa, and so that leaves Asia open for you, and quite frankly, this is where a majority of the resources are. Like, if you're going to be the United States, you need to be resource greedy, which Asia is, I think, almost as good, if not better, because you get China, you get the Southeast Asia, you can get Japan, and you can get all the way up into India, and you get all of those resources, you are a serious powerhouse. That is really like... as playing as the United States, that would be the direction I go, is into Asia, because Europe, you should have a friend over here in Europe, at least one friend in Europe. That way you can come back and forth into Europe, and after you're done taking Asia, if you're going for a solo win, or if Asia is kind of all messed up, or Europe's all kind of messed up, you can always go after Europe that way. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I know the last one was kind of a stretch, but the top four is the ones that I play most. If the United States is open and none of those are open, that's generally the next one that I take. Um, but the first four are totally solid. I hope you guys enjoyed them. I will see you guys in the next video.